They glisten behind the frosted glass bars of cream wrapped in gold foil, waiting for that small moment of reward after dinner. You peel one open, and the chill hits your fingers. The chocolate shell cracks, soft sweetness follows, and for a second it feels like childhood again. But something has changed. The cream doesn't melt the same way anymore. The chocolate feels waxy. The flavor lingers strangely sweet, and a glance at the label reads more like a chemistry set than dessert. Emulsifiers, stabilizers, chocolate-flavored coating, and oils that never belonged in real ice cream have quietly replaced the simple things that used to make it special. We're told it's convenience. We're told it's a modern improvement. The truth is, many of these bars are now frozen illusions, light, airy, and empty where richness should be. Today we're uncovering 5 ice cream bars you should avoid at all costs, and 2 that still remind us what real ice cream tastes like. 1 Blue Bunny mini bars. The freezer hums in the background, and rows of small bars gleam under the store lights. The wrappers shine like coins in cold air, promising the same creamy comfort we grew up with. You pick one, tear it open, and the chocolate coating snaps with a clean sound. But inside, the texture feels almost weightless, soft, foamy, and gone before the flavor even begins to settle. That's the quiet trick behind so many frozen treats today. What looks like indulgence has been engineered for efficiency. Blue Bunny mini bars don't even call themselves ice cream anymore. On the label, it reads frozen dairy dessert. That one phrase hides an entire industrial choice: less milk, fat, more additives, and air, plenty of air. The company admits it's whipped to make the texture light to help it freeze faster and scoop easier. But that same process, known as overrun, can more than double the volume of a batch while cutting cost almost in half. The science sounds harmless, yet the result feels hollow. The body of the bar carries less cream, so it melts faster, leaving behind a thin sweetness that refuses to fade naturally. It's dessert without depth. You taste sugar and vegetable oil instead of dairy richness. The smooth melt of cream that slow dissolve we once took for granted is replaced by something fluffy, quick, and strangely dry. This is how an ordinary bar becomes a quiet illusion. The size stays the same. The weight tells another story. Less density, less nutrition, less satisfaction, though the packaging still sells nostalgia, complete with smiling bunnies and pastel blue skies. It isn't unsafe, it simply isn't what it pretends to be. The shell hides compound chocolate made from vegetable oils instead of cocoa butter, and stabilizers like guar gum and carrageenan keep the shape firm long after real ice cream would have softened. Every shortcut makes business sense. Air costs nothing, real cream does. When thousands of gallons move through industrial tanks every hour, even a small reduction in milk fat saves millions. Regulations allow it. Most shoppers never notice. But when that airy sweetness fades too fast, when the freezer burn creeps in after a few days, we start to sense what's missing the weight of real food. It's not about nostalgia alone. It's about the shift from substance to simulation. The bar still looks generous, still carries the same shape, but it gives less in return. You finish it without feeling full, without that small calm that used to come from honest ingredients. What remains is a faint aftertaste, sugar and memory mixed together, and the realization that the pleasure was mostly packaging. For decades, ice cream meant richness measured by milk, not marketing. Somewhere between cost and convenience, that meaning thinned out. The Blue Bunny mini bar stands as proof that even sweetness can be stretched too far. And if air has replaced cream here, the next brand went further, swapping chocolate itself for oil. 2 Klondike Original Bars. Klondike Original Bars aren't coated in real chocolate at all. The label says it outright milk chocolate flavored coating. That phrase carries the whole truth. Instead of cocoa butter, the shell is built from coconut and palm oils blended with sugar and a synthetic cocoa powder. The center isn't classic ice cream either. It's classified as light ice cream, which means the fat content has been cut and replaced with stabilizers. What looks like a rich dessert is in reality a controlled experiment in industrial cost saving. The science behind the shine is straightforward. True chocolate depends on cocoa butter, a natural fat that melts a few degrees below body temperature. That low melt point gives the snap-then-silk transition we associate with premium bars. But cocoa butter is fragile and expensive. It softens easily, forms white bloom under warm lights, and can't survive long truck rides. Manufacturers needed a coating that would stay crisp in heat and solid in shipping crates. The answer was vegetable oil. When hydrogenated, it stiffens and hardens at much higher temperatures. Mix in sugar flavoring and coloring, and the result looks identical to tempered chocolate, just cheaper, tougher, and less alive. In large-scale production, that difference rewrites the math. Cocoa butter can cost 3 or 4 times more than palm oil. Multiply that gap by millions of units, and you save millions of dollars. The new coating doesn't demand refrigerated warehouses or temperature-controlled trucks. It doesn't melt under retail lighting. It doesn't bloom crack or waste product during packaging. Each bar spends less time on the line and more time looking flawless in the freezer aisle. From a spreadsheet view, the switch is genius. The factory logic continues: a thicker oil-based coating seals moisture inside, so bars resist freezer burn. Machines can wrap them faster because the surface hardens almost instantly after dipping. A single minute saved per production run adds hours of efficiency each day. It's the same philosophy that drives much of modern food manufacturing: maximize endurance, minimize fragility. Yet the mouth notices what the math hides. Oil does not melt like chocolate. It dulls the flavor instead of releasing it. The first bite offers a pleasant crack, but the shell softens slowly, leaving a faint film across the tongue. The sweetness is blunt without that quick aromatic bloom of cocoa that lifts the flavor of true chocolate. The coating clings to the palate long after the ice cream underneath has melted away. What's left is a residue not dangerous but heavy. You find yourself taking water after a dessert that once refreshed. This sensory shift changes the ritual itself. Real chocolate was designed to vanish at the same pace as the cream inside, creating a balance of cold and warmth, bitter and sweet. The engineered shell refuses that rhythm. It resists the mouth's temperature, forcing the body to do the work. The result is fatigue where delight used to live. Consumers may not articulate it, but they feel it, a small missing note that once defined the experience. No law is broken here. The FDA allows chocolate flavored so long as the taste profile approximates chocolate. The packaging can keep its familiar image: silver foil, bold letters, a memory of indulgence. Everything looks the same, only the definition has changed. It's the silent normalization of substitution: quality traded for consistency, flavor exchanged for efficiency. The gain for companies is measurable. The loss for taste is subtle but real. We've replaced melt with durability, aroma with neutrality. What was once fragile and human now behaves like machinery: stable, predictable, unbending. It's a triumph of process over pleasure. That is the real story behind the smooth surface of a Klondike bar. It isn't a scandal, just the outcome of endless optimization. It proves that in modern food design, the question is no longer can it taste better, but can it last longer? A longtime shopper summed it up after finally reading the ingredients: "I used to think it was chocolate until I read the label, now I can't untaste the oil." 3. Good humor. Strawberry shortcake bar. If something costs a little more, doesn't that mean it's better? Most of us believe so. That simple thought drives half the choices we make in the grocery aisle. We avoid the cheapest brand because it feels risky. We skip the fancy one because it feels unnecessary. And right in between sits the perfect price: safe, familiar, and easy to justify. That's where the good humor strawberry shortcake bar lives. It's not cheap enough to raise doubt, not premium enough to demand proof. At around $5 to $6 for a 6-pack, it lands in what marketers call the comfort zone. You feel like you're buying quality without overspending. It's the middle illusion, and it works beautifully. This middle tier is where trust hides. The packaging looks nostalgic: golden crumbs, cheerful pink color, the same design you remember from summer fairs and corner trucks. It whispers reliability. You've seen it for decades, so it must be fine. The box even carries phrases like classic taste, beloved recipe, and family favorite. The price confirms it: a small treat, not a splurge, not a gamble. But the numbers and words tell a different story. The ingredient list shows palm oil polysorbate, 80 artificial flavor, red 40, and red 3, not one trace of real strawberry. The bright crumb coating is sugar oil and coloring mixed to create the illusion of fruit. Even the scent is synthetic, built to trigger memories of summer rather than deliver real flavor. The cost isn't in the ingredients, it's in the feeling of recognition. That's the trick of the middle price. It shields the product from doubt. You assume the company wouldn't dare cut corners because it's a name you've trusted since childhood. You assume the flavor must still be close to what it once was because the box looks unchanged. What you're really paying for isn't fruit or cream, it's reassurance, and that reassurance has a cost. Every bar replaces real ingredients with artificial ones that are cheaper, more stable, and easier to mass produce. The bar smells like nostalgia, but tastes like routine. The first bite feels familiar, the second already predictable. It's comfort stripped of surprise. When the flavor fades faster than memory, you realize you weren't buying taste at all, just the feeling of safety that comes with recognition. This is why the middle shelf is the most profitable spot in any freezer. Premium brands fight for image. Budget brands compete on price. But the mid-range wins steadily, earning sales from people who don't want to think too hard about dessert. It's the shelf of habit, a place where marketing blends with memory until no one remembers why they trusted it in the first place. It's easy to call that manipulation, but it's really a mirror. Companies follow the signals we give them. We ask for comfort. They give it back in a box that looks the same every decade. We say we want value. They stretch the meaning until value becomes an illusion. We thought we were paying for flavor. What we bought was fragrance, and the next brand will show how even that illusion can go deeper, buried right inside the stabilizers themselves. 4 Walmart Great Value Vanilla Ice Cream Bars. I used to be a fan of ice cream bars, a man admits, but after learning what's inside this brand's package, my love cooled a bit. He isn't angry, just surprised. Because what he found wasn't poison or scandal. It was chemistry doing what time and care used to do. Walmart's Great Value. Vanilla ice cream bars look simple. Cream, chocolate, sugar, the familiar trio. But the label tells another story. Mixed between those words are mono and diglycerides, guar gum, carrageenan, polysorbate 80, and artificial flavor. The coating is chocolate flavored, made with coconut oil instead of cocoa butter. Each additive has a job. Some bind water, some thicken fat, others keep everything from separating or melting too soon. Together, they make the bar nearly indestructible. Inside the lab, that's brilliant design. These stabilizers make ice cream hold its shape even when a freezer door keeps opening and closing. They keep it smooth for months, preventing ice crystals and soggy texture. They let the bar travel thousands of miles without melting into a puddle. For the supply chain, it's a quiet miracle, long shelf life. Fewer returns, more profit. Inside the body, though, it's another story. When these compounds mix with stomach acid, they don't behave like milk or sugar. Carrageenan can irritate the lining of the gut in sensitive people. Polysorbate 80 is an emulsifier that helps fat and water mix useful in food, but inside the intestine, it can loosen the barrier that protects against inflammation. Guar gum and other thickening agents draw water into the digestive tract, which can cause gas or bloating. Each additive on its own may be mild, but together they turn a simple treat into a slow chemical puzzle for the body to solve. The digestive system is built for natural breakdown, chew, melt, dissolve, absorb. These compounds slow that rhythm. They resist heat and enzymes the same way they resist sunlight and shipping. The stomach has to work harder, the gut stays fuller longer, and the result is a feeling that's heavy rather than satisfying. For some, it shows up as stomach pain. For others, just a vague tiredness after eating. It's not toxic, it's simply too controlled. Health experts rarely call these ingredients dangerous. They're all approved within certain limits. The concern is what happens when they're eaten daily, hidden across foods that all depend on them: coffee creamers, sauces, frozen meals, and of course ice cream bars. The body adapts to convenience food the way a factory adapts to machinery. It gets efficient but less sensitive. Over time, we stop noticing how real cream melts differently, how simple milk tastes lighter, how freshness used to be a sign of quality. Imagine a young man at home after a long day. He opens his freezer, grabs one bar, then another, and another 3 in a row without thinking. The coating stays glossy, the texture never softens, the sweetness feels endless. He's full, but not satisfied, comforted, but strangely restless. He doesn't know that his stomach is still working through layers of gums and emulsifiers designed to outlast melting. He only knows that something doesn't feel quite right. The wrapper crumples, the screen glows, and the convenience he just ate begins its slow journey through a system never meant to digest perfection. If chemistry can hold shape this long, imagine what it does once it holds inside us. 5 Rich's Ice Cream Bars. This last one ironically isn't cheap or middle range, and that's the point. It's proof that premium doesn't always mean safe. Rich's ice cream bars were marketed as celebration desserts. The packaging glimmered in gold foil with elegant script and phrases like, "For life's sweetest moments." They looked special enough for birthdays or a quiet indulgence after dinner. But in 2025, more than 110,000 cases were recalled across 23 U.S. states for possible listeria contamination. The news landed softly at first because hardly anyone expected something dressed in luxury to be part of a recall list. It's easy to understand why. For decades, advertising has trained us to connect shine with safety. When we see smooth fonts and heavy packaging, our minds fill in the rest: cleanliness, quality, care. We assume a company that spends this much on appearance must also spend more on ingredients. That's not irrational, it's human. Price and polish have always been emotional shortcuts. They save us from reading every label or researching every factory. The wrapper tells us what we want to hear. You can trust this one. That psychological pattern runs deep. We equate effortful design with honesty, and we reward brands that mirror our self-image. Buying something premium isn't just about taste, it's about reassurance. It lets us feel thoughtful, selective above the chaos of discount aisles. But the comfort comes from illusion, not proof. The product may come from the same industrial line as a budget brand with the same stabilizers and the same shortcuts, only dressed in confidence. In reality, most of the extra money in a luxury bar goes to presentation. Gold foil, embossed printing-colored cartons, ad campaigns all add cost without touching the recipe. That small jump in price creates what marketers call perceived value. We don't just buy the bar, we buy the feeling that we've chosen well. It's a powerful loop. The fancier it looks, the safer it feels, and the less we question. But a recall breaks that spell. When the same bar that promised celebration appears in a government bulletin, something deeper than appetite changes. It's not only fear of contamination, it's disappointment. People feel tricked by elegance itself. The gold, the words, the little symbols of care suddenly look like disguises. What felt refined now feels hollow, and the loss isn't just money, it's trust. That's what makes premium so dangerous, not because luxury is wrong, but because it blinds us. We want to believe that care costs more, so we stop checking what's inside. We forget that price can be part of the performance. Real quality hides in simple things: clear sourcing, short ingredient lists, transparency instead of texture. The truth doesn't need gloss to be valuable. So when you stand in front of the freezer next time, look past the shine. Compare the back of the box, not the front. Ask whether the brand shows where its cream comes from, whether it explains what stabilizers it uses, whether it sounds proud of what's inside instead of how it looks outside. Luxury isn't evil, it's just not proof. The goal isn't to avoid nice packaging, but to remember what it's worth. Real safety, real quality, and real care often live in the plainest wrappers. Trust the list, not the shine. After all that shine, it's easy to feel a little lost. When every shelf tells a different story, affordable, fancy, heart-made, or all-natural trust becomes a maze. But not everything in the freezer hides a trick. Some brands still make ice cream, the slow way, using milk that hasn't been overworked, and ingredients that can be read without a dictionary. They don't chase perfection, they chase honesty. And that difference, small as it seems, changes everything. Because real quality doesn't shout. It just stays true even under the coldest light. 6 Johnny Pop's Strawberry Vanilla Bars. After all the noise, this one feels calm: cream, fruit, cane, sugar. Names we actually know. Johnny Pop's doesn't pretend to reinvent dessert. A small Minnesota company, it makes ice cream bars from a short list you can read in one breath: cream, strawberries, cane, sugar, salt, maybe a touch of guar gum. No chocolate-flavored shell, no color numbers, no mystery oils. The bars melt the way ice cream used to, slowly, naturally, leaving no waxy coat. On the box, there's no shouting, no superfood badge, no claim to be guilt-free. Just the ingredients listed clearly and a short note about the dairy source. The bar doesn't sell emotion, it sells clarity. Online reviews reflect that confidence. A shopper on Target's website wrote, "Tastes like real strawberries, not candy." Another on Walmart added, "It melts fast, but that's how you know it's real." They're not fan club raves, just simple gratitude from people tired of decoding labels. At a local grocery store, a retiree told a reporter, "This one doesn't leave a coat in my mouth." She didn't use words like organic or clean label, she just described a feeling her body recognized as genuine. That's the secret here. The trust doesn't come from marketing, it comes from experience. The bars aren't perfect. They cost a bit more, roughly 1.5 times the price of a store brand. They melt faster if left out. Some flavors use a hint of guar gum to stay creamy, but these are trade-offs that feel fair. Honesty doesn't mean flawless, it means understandable. When a company explains its ingredients instead of disguising them, the relationship feels human again. That's what makes Johnny Pop stand out in a freezer full of performance food. Every other bar we've seen tried to last longer, look shinier, or promise purity through polish. This one does the opposite. It lets time, temperature, and truth do their work. The cream softens at room heat, the fruit fades gently on the tongue. There's no perfume rush or artificial smoothness, just a brief, clean sweetness that disappears exactly when it should. Maybe that's the lesson hiding in the simple bar. After 5 chapters of air oil scent stabilizers and shine, the thing that feels most luxurious isn't perfection. It's peace. The peace of knowing what you're eating, of tasting something that doesn't argue with your senses. The kind of comfort that used to be normal. Even online, where cynicism runs wild, the feedback threads read more like thank you notes than reviews. People mention buying them for their kids or keeping them for normal evenings because they don't trigger headaches or stomach aches. Some mention the handwritten feel of the brand's mission statement printed inside the box of pop with purpose. It's small, maybe sentimental, but it feels like a handshake rather than an ad. And yet even here, nuance matters. Honesty won't stop inflation. Good sourcing can't protect a product from melting. The bar remains fragile, as all real things are. But that fragility, that willingness to melt, is what makes it real. After everything we've unwrapped, that's what stands out. The simplest bar ends up tasting the most human. 7 Häagen-Dazs ice cream bars. Not every famous name feels distant. Häagen-Dazs sits in freezers from small-town groceries to international airports, and somehow it still signals something simple. Real cream, real chocolate, real vanilla. Whether you grew up in the States or far from it, the bar looks familiar. A small rectangle that promises the same thing every time. That is its universal image reliability with a human taste. Under the wrapper, the method is old on purpose. The bar starts with a short list: cream, milk, sugar, egg yolks. Then a flavor built from honest sources: cocoa butter for the shell, vanilla from beans, fruit for fruit lines. The base is a classic custard, not a light formula. Air is kept low so the center feels dense and cold in a satisfying way. The coating melts near body temperature, which is why the first bite snaps, then turns silky a heartbeat later. Nothing perfumed, nothing rubbery, nothing that lingers like wax. The recipe asks time to do what additives often try to force. Price tells its own story. A Häagen-Dazs bar usually costs more than store brands in many national bars. Some days it can feel like twice the price of a bargain 6-pack when you count it bar for bar. But most of that difference funds the things you can taste: higher butterfat, real cocoa butter, careful cold chain handling, and slower production runs that protect texture. Marketing exists, of course, but the value is mostly inside the bar, not on the box. You do not need a dictionary to read the label, and you do not need a glass of water after you finish. Achievement here is not about novelty. It is about standards that held. Since the early years, the company became a lesson in how a big brand can grow without rewriting the basics. The bar still behaves like ice cream. Should it softens when warm, it blooms with flavor as it melts, and it leaves a clean finish. That consistency taught generations that simplicity can be premium, that cream, sugar, and patience can be enough. In a market where many products chase shelf life or spectacle, Häagen-Dazs stayed with fundamentals and won trust the slow way. There is nuance, and it matters. The fat content is higher, calories follow. The price can exclude shoppers on tight budgets, especially during inflation. Corporate ownership brings its own debates, and not every limited flavor is as pure as the classics. If you expect health claims, you will not find them. This is dessert made to taste like dessert. The promise is not good for you. The promise is made properly. Being clear about that is part of the integrity. Back to the experience. Hold a bar for a few seconds and you will feel the shell give just a little. Bite and the crack turns to silk. The center stays cold and steady, then relaxes into a clean finish. Chocolate tastes like chocolate because cocoa butter melts where it should. Vanilla tastes like vanilla because it comes from the bean, not a perfume mix. When you stop eating, the flavor stops too. No film, no aftershocks. Just the memory of cream and the sense that nothing was overmanaged. That is why the name travels so well. It is not the letters on the box, it is the behavior of the bar. In country after country, the same pattern repeats: a short label, a proper melt, and a flavor that arrives and leaves on time. It proves that scale does not have to erase honesty, and that a product can be both global and simple. In a world that keeps engineering dessert to last and shine, Häagen-Dazs remains a small lesson written in cold, real ingredients handled with care can carry a brand across decades and borders. The bar melts when it should, and that is enough. From the first cheap bar to the last honest one, the pattern is clear. Every shortcut promised comfort, and every promise came with a cost air instead of cream oil, instead of chocolate illusion, instead of truth. Yet, through that maze of packaging and polish, a few names still kept the spirit of real ice cream alive. What we eat in the end says what we expect from the world. If we keep rewarding fakes, they'll multiply. If we start valuing what's simple, clean, and real, we'll reshape what companies dare to sell us. So next time you reach into the freezer, remember, this trust has a texture. You can taste it in the melt, smell it in the milk, and see it in the label that doesn't need to shout. Real pleasure never needed perfection, just honesty cold enough to hold its form.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.